Dennis.
Live and direct, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune News Hour, where, of course, we are joined by Denis Waitley, who's a very familiar face to this community here, as well as the community across the world. Of course, today we're starting this program reporting some news of who many would consider to be a giant, a living legend, words are difficult to describe the impact that this gentleman has made throughout the course of his almost 90 years here on planet Earth. Of course, a friend of yours, Denis, Bob Proctor, who, of course, passed away a short time ago, February 3rd, just a couple days ago. And we were here just weeks ago, Denis, doing a tour with you, with Joe Vitale, with so many incredible thought leaders across the world. What we did not know was that that was going to be one of Bob Proctor's last public appearances. And what we certainly did not know at that time was that that conversation that you had with Bob Proctor would be the final time that the two of you would be able to share publicly. And suddenly that time that we spent just a few weeks ago has really become so much more meaningful for all of us and all of the community at large that participated in that tour. And we're going to go ahead and give the floor to you, Denis. You're going to be spending the next hour with friends, with colleagues. There's going to be several people that were from what perhaps Bob Proctor was best known for to the general public, which was, of course, the secret film and book. And, there's going to be a emotional but powerful celebration of Bob's legacy here during this hour-long news program. And so I want to give you the floor just to start generally, Denis, and just share what's in your heart on a general level. I'm not going to ask a specific question, and I'm just going to give the floor to you for a few minutes before we're joined by your friend and colleague, Dr. Joe Vitale, who we're going to also be bringing in a few short minutes here. But Denis, please.
Well, thank you very much, Mo. It's good to see you and Adora. This is a kind of a heavy heart day for me because Bob meant more to me than it might be understood by the audience. I've known Bob for 54 years, 54 years of a wonderful experience of learning and sharing, almost all joyful, in the same river that runs through us. Bob definitely not only a pioneer and a giant and an icon, but so brilliant, so thoughtful, so spiritual, so connected, so much of a great teacher. And words can't really express. I'm a word merchant, and I use words to try to paint pictures, word pictures. And I'm almost at a loss for words to talk about Bob. But at the same token, he had so much to give and so much to share. He had an enormous body of work that still will continue. And I know that the foundation, that the institute that he and his partners set up will continue to grow much the same, and maybe even to a greater degree, in my opinion, to a greater degree than the Dale Carnegie group, because Bob's work, along with Dale Carnegie, along with, as you mentioned, Mo, W. Clement Stone. I knew W. Clement Stone very closely. So when he founded his insurance company, and he also founded Success Magazine. And so I was on the cover of one of the first Success magazines. It was a little teeny small. It looked like a TV Guide. At the time, it was very small. Og Mandino was the first publisher. And Og Mandino, of course, wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World. So Bob Proctor, he loved Og Mandino. He certainly learned a lot, as I did, from W. Clement Stone. And Mo, you made a very important statement just a few minutes ago when we were on another call. I want to repeat that for the audience. It's not necessarily that Napoleon Hill got rich by writing Think and Grow Rich. The richness of what he taught didn't go unnoticed by W. Clement Stone. And W. Clement Stone was able to put together the system and the follow-on and the Success Magazine and the positive thinking rallies. So W. Clement Stone took what he learned from Napoleon Hill and took it to a different level in another way to help even more people. And I think that's very significant to know that, you know, Picasso wasn't necessarily that rich in his early years, and nor was Rembrandt, and nor was Michelangelo. And some of the greatest artists, thought leaders, Patience, Socrates, Plato, they were not wealthy necessarily in the material terms, but the wealth of their knowledge and what they taught was carried forth by people who built empires, kingdoms, hospitals, countries, built gigantic things. So that's why it's so important to celebrate the life of Bob Proctor. Bob and I go back to Nightingale Conant. So Earl Nightingale first of all, Earl Nightingale was Sky King on the radio. And so I would listen to the radio when I was 9 years old and 10 years old. And there was this deep voice of Earl Nightingale, but he was Sky King. And Sky King was on every Saturday. And we had the adventures of Sky King. I didn't know that Earl Nightingale did Our Changing World, which was a program on Chicago radio. I didn't know that Earl had an insurance company. I didn't know that Bob Proctor had an insurance company. But what I did know is that Bob Proctor got together with Lloyd Conant and Earl Nightingale at Nightingale Conant in Chicago. And Bob and I go back to those days in 1970s when Bob was listening to The Strangest Secret. Isn't it interesting that The Strangest Secret, then Bob became one of the principal teachers in Rhonda Byrne's tremendous video and book, The Secret. But Bob learned the strangest
Absolutely
from Earl Nightingale directly.
It's incredible, Dennis. And you mentioned The Secret, not to cut you off, but you mentioned The Secret. And I just want to add to that real quickly here before we continue and pick up where you left off. Because, you know, in the final episode of Seinfeld, and I know a lot of people are wondering, well, where are you going with this, Mo? In the final episode of Seinfeld, when Jerry Seinfeld was there with his 3 co-hosts, he said, for the rest of our lives, when someone thinks of one of us, they're going to think of all 4 of us. And I think with The Secret, that's absolutely true for Dr. Joe Vitale. When people think of Dr. Joe Vitale, they're going to think of Bob Proctor. They're going to think of Michael Beckwith. They're going to think of Lisa Nichols. And that's going to be true for the remainder of their lives. And of course, you're also a part of the legacy of The Secret. And I want to bring in Dr. Joe Vitale here, Dennis, because he's coming in live and we have a limited time with him. But I want to bring him in here. And Dr. Joe Vitale, welcome back, of course, to our platform here. And of course, it's under these sombering circumstances, but we're here to discuss Bob's legacy, celebrate his life, and we're going to step back and allow you and Dennis to share the next 10, 15 minutes together as colleagues and as friends, and just to naturally have a conversation to share the memory that you have and certain memories that the 2 of you have with Bob Proctor. And then we'll be joined by Marie Diamond in a few minutes as well. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and give the floor to Joe and Dennis to continue the conversation about Bob Proctor. Please welcome Joe.
Well, it's your turn, Joe. It's your turn, Joe, because I got 5 minutes before you came on, and I'm so eager to hear you and your not memories, but your experiences with Bob and what you gained from him. So, you know, this is a tremendous loss, but at the same time, it's a way for us to edify and celebrate him rather than. So I'm heavy-hearted, but I'm enlightened at the same time. So I'm really eager, Joe, and it's so great to be on with you today. I really appreciate taking time on Saturday to celebrate one of the really great thought leaders of our time.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here, and it's great to see all of you. It's great to see you in particular, Dennis. I miss seeing you and talking to you, and still looking forward to our time together. I've also been dreading this moment. I'm quaking inside. I have tears in my eyes. When Mo introduced me or invited me to be here, I instantly said yes and instantly broke into tears. And I thought, oh, how am I going to do this? Because Bob Proctor inspired a lot of people, but he specifically helped a lot of people. And I was one of them. Back in 1999, I was making a name for myself as a marketer. I had come out with books with the American Management Association, American Marketing Association. I had my first program with Nightingale Conant, The Power of Outrageous Marketing. And people were noticing me and they were thinking of me as a marketer and copywriter. And Bob Proctor reached out to me, wanted to meet me, invited me to come to his seminar that he was doing in Denver. And so this is around 99. And I went to it and I thought, well, he's giving me this profound gift. I get to meet him, other people. I get to go to his event. And I thought I should give him something. And I had an unpublished pamphlet that I was kind of hiding. It revealed the spiritual side of me, which I didn't really want people to know about at the time. I was working for all these conservative business companies and thought I might damage my rising star by saying, hey, I'm into woo-woo. And I gave the little booklet to Bob Proctor as a gift. I just said, this isn't published, but I wanted to thank you in some way. And he read it, and my God, he changed my life forever. He got on stage in front of 300 people, and he said, Dr. Joe Vitale is in the audience. I don't even think I was a doctor then. He said, Joe Vitale was in the audience. And he said, he just handed me his new book. And the book isn't published yet, but you're all going to want it. And he said the title, which was Spiritual Marketing. He said, I read it. I want to publish this book. He announced he wanted to publish it. He says, I want to record this book. And I was red-faced, embarrassed, because I thought, I'm not prepared for this. 250 people mobbed me. They all wanted the book. And I said, the book doesn't exist. And there was a publisher there, and he says, I'll publish the book. And I said, you haven't even read it. He said, Bob Proctor read it. If Bob Proctor likes it, he's raving about it, I'll publish it sight unseen. The book got published. The book, with a groundswell grassroots movement, became my first bestseller on Amazon. The New York Times was writing about discovered books and mentioned Spiritual Marketing, my book that Bob Proctor had discovered and announced and embarrassed me with. And then a big publisher called me up and said, hey, we're hearing about this book called Spiritual Marketing. We want to republish it, and but we want to change the title. And they offered me a nice deal. It was a turning point in my publishing career. It's a big publisher. It's the same publisher who published Moby Dick for Melville back in the 1800s. So I was in the line of the greats. And we came up with a new title, and the new title was The Attractor Factor, which is still today my #1 self-help bestseller. But the story doesn't even end there, because The Attractor Factor ended up being a bestseller, partly because I was applying some outrageous marketing to it to make it a bestseller, partly because Bob Proctor was telling everybody about the book, and he wrote the foreword to Spiritual Marketing, so he associated himself with it. And then I get a phone call from a woman in Australia who said, I just read this book called The Attractor Factor, and I'm going to make a movie about the law of attraction, and I was wondering if you'd be in it. And I almost said no, because I was hearing from people who had dreams but never acted on them. And I thought, if you get it together, and I told her, I said, if you get it together and you have your script or whatever you need to make this movie real, give me a call. And of course she did. And of course the movie was The Secret. And of course I'm in it. And of course it changed the trajectory of my life. Most people today don't even know I have a marketing background. Now they think of me as the secret guy, the spiritual teacher, the self-help guy. But I swear to God, that would not be happening, Dennis. It would not be here today if it was not for Bob. Bob believed in me before I believed in me. And this is what I mean. He didn't just inspire me. He frickin' did something.
Yeah.
And as I talked to other people, whether it was John Asseroff or others from The Secret, they all said that Bob did things for them. He helped us. He lifted us. He also got in my face a few times because he told me I should be flying first class. And I'm a guy that was homeless and then in poverty. It's like first class, that's incomprehensible. But Bob Proctor was saying, no, this is your vote for prosperity. When you start flying first class, it'll change you. It's not about flying first class. It's about what first class means to you on a prosperity level. Well, it probably took me 2 years to finally fly first class. And my God, I thought about it every time I bought a ticket. But when I finally started doing it, because of Bob Proctor's urging, I ended up not only loving it, but I refused to fly in any other way. It's private jet or first class. And that's all from Bob. And throughout the last 2 decades, he's always stayed in contact with me. The largest audience I ever spoke at was in Peru. There were 20,000 people. It was an outdoor arena. I had a police escort. I had an entourage. I had translators. I had a bodyguard. And the only other speaker on that stage was Bob Proctor. And it was one of the career highlights for this nobody, who's done some marketing and was lucky enough to meet Bob and all these other things that fell into effect because almost like a domino effect. It was because of Bob. And here I am on stage in front of 20,000 people with Bob Proctor. And I can go on. I mean, he had some great quotes. There were quotes that I've repeated many times. One of them about when you set a goal, the goal has to be so big that it exhilarates you, but also scares you. And so I am forever grateful to what he has personally done for me. It wasn't just his books. It wasn't just his audios. He actually he put money down. He put his name down. He made phone calls. He did all of it to personally help me. How do I say thank you to that?
Boy, I know. Well, that's not only a wonderful story, but that's a wonderful testimony for who he is and the kind of person he does, because he does that with everyone. He called me after we got introduced in a professional way. He called and we reminisced about the 70s and the 80s. And he told me that the strangest secret, talking to Earl and listening to Earl. So he became a Nightingale Conant distributor. So he began to sell their programs, but he got so much content from Napoleon Hill and from Earl Nightingale that he became another generation of them, but took it his own way. And he put a lot more spiritual and a lot more meaning to it. He got a lot closer to audiences than Earl did, because as you remember, Earl wasn't known for going out and giving workshops and seminars. In fact, when Earl spoke, he used a script and stood behind a podium and he read it just like he does his great audios. Earl was the master at giving content directly, but Bob took that in a whole different direction, and he really did introduce it as a workshop seminar kind of thing. So he gave The Strangest Secret and Lead the Field seminars that Earl Nightingale never did. And I learned a lot from Bob in that way too. But like you say, I think your contact and interaction with him on a personal building basis is one of the most significant and heartwarming stories to show what kind of person this man is. And boy, Joe, I ever appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm only one of many that have been directly influenced, so I'm honored to have been here.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, Joe, for accepting our invitation and spending some time. We know we have about 10 minutes left with you. So what I want to do is I want to give Adora, my co-host, a chance to chime in. And in about a minute or so, we're going to bring in Dame Marie Diamond, and we're going to allow a few of the stars of The Secret to share their memories of Bob Proctor together, all three of them live on the air. Before we bring Dame Marie in, Dora, would you like to chime in? You're muted, Adora.
This is so great, and thank you for sharing your stories. Personally, I've been impacted by so many thought leaders, and I am the biggest fangirl of Denis Waitley forever, even though I get to work with him because he leads with so much heart. But during working on Denis's album, The Inner Winner, I asked Denis for a list of friends that I could reach out to. And Denis does not ask and will not ask anyone for anything. So I had to really ask for a list. And Bob blew me away because right away he said, whatever I can do for Denis. And within an hour, he recorded a video. Adora, my name is Bob Proctor. Here's my cell phone. You call me if you need anything. And then he recorded a visualization he wanted me to send to Denis. He recorded a program or a video for us to send out. And he sent out a video to his entire email list, all within an hour, and then said, I'm here if you need anything. And so Bob was the next person that grabbed my heart in a way that so many of people in this industry are incredible beings. Denis has touched my heart in the deepest way. Bob came through with that action and touched me in a very impactful way, very similar to that Denis is known for.
I think it's important, Adora, to share that insight with our audience and give some folks a sneak peek kind of behind the curtain into the kind of man that Bob Proctor was. We all know what kind of a teacher he was, but to know what kind of a man he does just makes it that much more important. With that, I'm going to bring in now someone that is also going to forever be connected to the legacy of Bob Proctor, by and large due to the phenomena of The Secret. And that's, of course, Marie Diamond. And Marie Diamond, welcome to the stage. We're going to go ahead. Adora and I will step back and we'll create a secret reunion here and have the three of you speak for the next few minutes about Bob Proctor and some pleasant memories that the three of you have. So Marie Diamond, please.
Yes, thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. Hello, Denis. Hello, Joe. And thank you all for allowing me to speak. It was so interesting. This week, I was suddenly really thinking about Bob. And I was thinking, I'm sending him some energy or some healing because I didn't know why I was suddenly started thinking so intensely about him. But it actually, the first time I really connect with him, I just had immigrated from Europe to America. And one night I was praying and I said to the universe, who do I need to meet one day? I did not know any of you. I was just really not connected with the people that were really known and famous already in the self-help and the spiritual world. And I really was praying, please tell me, who do I need to meet? And I woke up in the middle of the night with the message, you have to open the television on this channel. I didn't know the number anymore. So I opened the television and it was after midnight. So there was a shopping channel I clicked on and there was Bob Proctor selling his probably CDs at that time about Think Rich, Grow Rich. And I was like, wow, this is an amazing man. I said, okay, one day I'm going to meet him. One day I will talk to him. So I started putting that out. I bought the CDs. I put them, around me and I started listening to him. And then, like a few years later, I was interviewed by Rhonda Byrne for The Secret in Aspen, Colorado. And as I come out of the interview, there is Bob. Apparently, he had flown in to do his interview for The Secret. And this is a tall man, and I did not expect that from the television, like suddenly seeing this amazing man. And I had kept him waiting because apparently my interview went much longer than, was programmed. And I said, sorry, you're Bob Proctor. And he said, yes. I said, I'm sorry, I let you wait. He said, no, it means that you have a lot to say. So I'm like, okay. I said, no, that is fine. And then The Secret came out, and Joe, as you know, and then in the beginning, The Secret really did not have any marketing strategy, right? So it was just like, trying to find a way to get that going. And one day, Rhonda was saying, I need your help. I want you to look at what blockages I have. And she said, I'm on the phone with Bob. On the conference call, I want you to start being in the conference call because I need some help to really change my mind, because she became really a bit, stressed about that the marketing was not going anywhere. And so Bob and I, for several times, came together, guiding Rhonda together with information. And then one day, the DVD was out. He called me. He said, I'm speaking in Orange County, and I want you and Rhonda to come and speak in for the audience. Now, I had done some local seminars. You have to think, I just started in America, right? I was just a total unknown that got in the secret at that point. And so Rhonda was like, I'm not going on stage. I'm not a speaker. So Bob said, no, you need to speak. And Marie, you need to really speak for a bigger audience. And I'm like, but Bob, I've never spoken for such an audience. So about 1,000 people. And so he dragged Rhonda and me on the stage. And Rhonda was like was answering questions about the secret, because already, of course, he had shared with everyone in the audience about the secret. They had already watched the secret. And so he was like one of the, like you shared, Joe, an amazing promoter, like what he believed in. And so he had made everybody watch that. And I think these were the first waves that he started to sell the secret, to not sell, to promote, because he didn't get money on that, but just to promote it. And then he said to me, Marie, I really believe in you. And I, at that moment, still felt very small. And I didn't have a name at that point. I was in the secret. That was it. Right. And then he said, but I really believe in your work, and I want you to come and fly into my hometown. I want you to do the feng shui as a feng shui master. I want you to do my home. And so I flew in, and it's really funny you said about first class. The first question he asked me, Marie, did you fly first class? And I said, I didn't. He said, this is not okay. You're flying back first class. And I was like, okay, so any money I had from Bob to do this, I was like, okay, I'm using this to fly back. So instead of, making a profit, I used it to fly back first class. And so to just really shift that. And it was so amazing spending a few days with him and his darling wife. And then he took really an extra day to help me to, he saw always the great potential in people, and he also saw my great potential. And, each time we met, and we spoke several times on many platforms, we would have lunch, we would have moments together. And each time he just expressed how he believed in you, and always ask you, what can I do for you? He was the most present man that I've ever met. He was always present to be there for you. Even if there were so many people, when he talked to you, he was with you. And he always saw what he could do for you. And I am really honored that he came in my life. And thank you, Bob, for what you did for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Dame Marie. And it seems this first class situation is a reoccurring theme. It seems like he wanted everyone to fly first class. And of course, we want to be respectful of Dr. Joe's time. We know that he's on a very tight and busy schedule. So I'm going to give you the final words that you'd like to share with our audience, Dr. Joe, before we bid you farewell. And then we'll keep you here, Marie, for a few more minutes. So you and Dennis can have a conversation about Bob. But Dr. Joe, please, your final thoughts.
I wrote down 3 quotes that were from Bob Proctor, and maybe those are worth chewing on. He said at one point, if you must doubt something, doubt your limits. Another quote was, the law of prosperity is generosity. If you want more, give more. And the third one is, if you know what to do to reach your goal, then your goal isn't big enough.
Wow. That's
I'm
heavy
honored to be here. Thank you, everybody. Godspeed to all of you and to Bob Proctor.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for always being supportive. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you. And with that, we're gonna, step back and let. And we know, Marie, where you're at. You're a Miss International, so I think it's almost 1 a.m. where you are. So we want to bid you farewell pretty soon as well. But we just want to give you and Dennis at least about 5 minutes together, since at the last event, you guys did not have that opportunity. And of course, you two are together again under sombering circumstances, but we're going to keep it positive because of the positive impact that Bob Proctor made in his life. And I want to see if, Adora, you have anything you'd like to chime in before we step back and let these two remarkable folks share a conversation. Adora,
No.
please.
Thank you so much, Mo.
There we
But no,
go.
it's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Dame Marie and Dennis, please spend the next few minutes together. Thank you.
Oh, it's so good to see you. It's so good to see you again. You know, when I talked to Rhonda Byrne and about The Secret, and of course it was supposed to be a one-off television show one time throughout the world to get the energy of the world all at the same time. But the time zones were so different. They had that trailer, that wonderful trailer that they did before they did The Secret. And I remember Rhonda said that her daughter Sky had shown her The Science of Getting Rich was one of their seminal books behind the law of attraction. But at any rate, it's very interesting that we were both, I was only known for The Psychology of Winning, but I had no idea that I would be included in The Secret because, as you know, none of us was paid to come and do it. So when I don't know where you came, but I flew to Chicago and people were going in and out. You know, Jack Canfield was going in and John Azareth was going in. And so I didn't know some of the other people in it, but it's just amazing that you and I happened to be in that film that ended up being a video that went like hot pancakes. Those went out the door like 1,000 a day all throughout the world. And when I traveled to different places, they would tell me in Bolivia and when I was in Bogota, Colombia, they said El Secreto, the secret.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I said, sí, El Secreto, pequeño, a very small part, like a cameo. Yeah. So I did more of a cameo appearance where people like yourself had more of the meat, as Joe Vitale did. And Bob Proctor, of course, was one of the stars as well. So it put us together in a way that I shall never forget. And I just want you to know how much I'm in tune with everything you do, of course, and how wonderful it is for you and I to finally just be side by side for a while, because we go in different directions. But Marie, it's so great to see you and so great to be with you.
Thank you.
And remembering Bob, because
Yeah.
he's done so much for everyone and us too.
Yeah, I thank you so much, and it's always wonderful to see you. We saw each other a few years ago for another movie, but it's it's always sad when we have to come together to honor somebody has passed on, but we really need to focus on the law of vibration, as Bob was always talking about, that we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate all the great things that he has brought for the world and millions of people that he has influenced. And I know that when he put his weight and his energy behind someone or something, then it went forward with the fastness of speed, the speed of light, like so fast. And that's what he did also with The Secret, and for so many things. And we do all our wonderful work, and I'm sure, I was writing today, I'm sure that Bob is already starting to teach the angels how to think and grow rich.
Well, that's wonderful to say. And it's so interesting that you and Joe both talked about flying first class. And I put that in a different context, because he wasn't really talking about spending the money so that you could be among those who were the more fortunate with money. He was talking about the abundance mentality and having a first class Olympic attitude of excellence up here first. And it's really it was hard for me to switch from coach to business to first, because I've been a coach guy most of my life, flying with the least expense to get somewhere. But it was sure nice to get out of the crap space and finally get into a little more room. And it felt good, but it wasn't because of the cost of the ticket. It was because of the mindset of abundance that Bob gave so many, including you and I and Joe Vitale, because Joe, that's the first thing he mentioned before you came on was that Bob made him fly first class.
Yes, he's just, it was so interesting because at a certain point as a feng shui master, I had told him how to create a very special fountain in his garden. And so every time he saw me after that, he would always say, "The fountain is running, Marie." I mean, he would not even say, "How are you?" He would say, "The fountain is running." So he's like, he remembered so the small details, but also in such a humorous way. And I have seen, the deep work he has done, not just with me to expand my mind, but also to, so many people. And the last day, there's so many beautiful messages going out for people just expressing and celebrating this amazing man. So it's so wonderful to do that with you. Thank you so much, Mo, to allow me to come.
Thank you too. Yeah, and I have one little comment, Mo, but it just reminded me when Joe was talking about how much Bob did for him personally, up close personal, not just in passing. So Bob did the same thing for me. So after he agreed to help promote the new psychology of winning, which I finished writing in a skilled nursing home. So picture it, I'm in a skilled nursing facility. I'm recovering from throat cancer. I've had 33 days of radiation and chemotherapy. I'm not 100%, but I'm writing the last part of the book. Bob Proctor calls me at the nursing facility and said, "Denis, I'm happy to do, promotion for your book and everything, but I want to send you this visualization video so that you can get yourself well." And he sent me a visualization video so that I could help myself get my health back in a nursing home before I ever got out. And for him to do that, and John Azarath did the same thing. John sent me an audio meditation to think about health and wellness and where I was going, the desired result. And I'll never forget that Bob said, "This is going to help you. I know it's going to help you." And Brian Tracy did the same thing. So he sent me one. So all of my friends, especially Bob, were helping me at the most critical times in my life. And I'll always remember Bob for going the extra mile personally as well as professionally.
Well, thank you, Denis, for sharing that. As I said earlier, I think it's important for more people to know about the man he was. We all know about what a teacher he was. And so I want to thank you for sharing that insight. Before we ask you, Marie, to just share your final thoughts before we let you go, I do want to bring in another dame here. Of course, my personal mentor and friend, Doria Cordoba, who also knew Bob Proctor and has some Bob Proctor stories to share with us. Of course, Doria, is not green. She's been around and she knows so many of these incredible thought leaders and remarkable human beings that are making a difference on the world. But before we go to Doria, Dame Marie, we just want to give you your final moment, your final words that you'd like to share, because we want to be respectful of the fact that it's early morning over there. And so just Dame Marie, I want to give you the floor to kind of share your final thoughts with our audience about Bob Proctor.
Well, first of all, I want to say hi to my friend TC, Doria, and thank you, Denis, and thank you, Adora and Mo, to allow me to be here. And what I would suggest or encourage you for people that don't know enough about the work of Bob Proctor, please go and check out his books, the DVDs, CDs, his programs online. The man is not here on this planet, but his wisdom and his legacy remains forever.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Marie. And we will see you at another event very shortly. Have a lovely night. Thank you.
Bye.
And with
Aloha.
that, I want to welcome and say aloha to Dame Doria. And Dame Doria, I know you have some stories of Bob Proctor that you'd like to share. So we'll give you some time to spend here with Denis. Before we do that, Adora, do you have anything you'd like to chime in?
I'm enjoying this so much, and thank you for asking, Mo. Well,
Beautiful. And with that, we're going to step back and let Doria and Denis have a few minutes together.
I just want to make sure, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Good. Thank you so much. Well, the first thing I want to say, Denis, this is so fantastic. We get to good to keep sharing together. You were in Fridays with Doria, and we get to be with Adora and Mo whenever they put something together. So I feel like we're getting to see each other more than ever.
We
From
are.
the first time we met in China with our mutual partner, Wilson Lin.
Right.
And so what I wanted to say first, I really wanted to also honor you. And I feel so happy that we get to be here together under what could be sad, but at the same time, there's this joy for me that we got to be with beautiful OGs. And for those people that don't know, an OG is a compliment. It comes from the hip hop and the from the young people that call it an original gangster, but that is somebody that has really earned the right to be respected. That's somebody that has really put in the work and really has done some extraordinary things. So you and of course Bob Proctor were so have changed so many people's lives and have taught so many different people. And so I just wanted to really thank you and honor you in front of all these people that will be watching this, because we are celebrating this beautiful life with you here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Doria. And I was thinking about Bob again. It really saddens me, of course, because, I'm 7 months older than Bob. And so here I am, I'll be 89 on the 6th of June of this year. And Bob was born in 1934 and I was born in 1933. So we had the same kind of childhood experiences. So we both came from a paradigm of growing up when we did. We went through the late period after the Depression in 1929, the early 30s. Then we both went through World War II. Then we both went through polio. The big virus in the world then. Then we went through the Cold War, and we went through the Korean War and the Vietnam War, and all of these things have happened. So coincidentally, I feel that Bob Proctor and I have been on the same riverboat flowing through the river of life about the same time. So it was very sad for me to know that physically he's not here. However, what it's done for me is given me even more of a wake-up call on how important it is to live every moment in this moment, taking advantage of communicating and being with and helping everyone, making this moment the most important moment of your life. Because I decided when I heard that he was gone physically, it made me want to do so much more to help people, to be so much more of a helping hand, because he instilled in me that would be a mission that we would all have, is also to make sure that every communication we had was a positive influence on somebody or something that made the world better. And so what I've decided, hearing about that, is to be twice the man that I already was, by remembering him in such a way that I'm going to continue to do more than I would have done, because I need to add his energy to mine and make sure that his legacy lives on in my work. But I'm going to make sure that I remember every kernel of wisdom he's given to me. And so I'm so glad to be with you, because you had the same experience and I've had it with you. We've traveled together in China. I'm enjoying the Winter Olympics in a different way, because many of the coaches and the athletes from previous years who were there, I knew them, and I helped in 2008. I went to Beijing and was sports psychologist for the Olympic Games when they were in Beijing. And here we are all these years later for the Winter Olympics in 2022. So, I just feel like Bob Proctor was the greatest coach of Olympian people that I've met in a long time. And meeting you there as we did, and having an impact not only on the Chinese people, but everyone that you and I meet, it's just like a fraternity, and a fraternity of like-minded souls. And Bob Proctor has been the glue that has held us all together. And so I'm just so grateful that you and I have had a chance to share him and each other with our audiences.
Thank you. Well, it was really interesting because of course, I had heard of him, because of his fame in this industry and me being in the background, being, in the back, so to speak, supporting, all the different up and coming big transformational leaders, Tony Robbins, Kiyosaki and many others. But one of the things that I remember when I first personally met him, was in 2008 at an event where we were both speaking. And I went up to him and I didn't realize how big he was. He was so tall and beautiful. And so I went up to him and I started to speak and I introduced myself and I started to say something about myself. And he said, "I know who you are." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And he was like grateful for what I had done in the background. And I remember thinking, wow, it's like I was very moved. He was so present and so loving at the fact that it made me feel very special that he knew who I was, because a lot of people in the industry know, but just the way that he said it, he was present, he was loving. And then he said something to the effect, "Would you like to have a picture taken?" And it was like, "Oh, that would be fun." So we took some pictures together. And then, of course, I got to see him at different times. And we did engage in a conversation about our industry once, and then, of course, him being about, about 19, 18 years older than me, we were talking about that we really need to keep the standards very high for our industry, so that people, they're so eager, they so want to learn, they want to know how can they be guided so that they can really contribute to the world. So we had a conversation kind of like in the background of what it was that we wanted to really create, and just really was very thankful. And one of the things that I asked was of Mo and of Dora, if I could just do a very short 5 minutes from the Ho'oponopono prayer that I've been a practitioner of since 1984. And I know that Bob would have really enjoyed this little tiny prayer that we can pull out of the longer version. Would that be okay with you?
Fine.
Of course, yes.
Okay. So Ho'oponopono is like an offshoot. Morna Simeona back in the 60s and 70s saw that there was so much strife in the world. So she pulled out some of the teachings from the Hawaiian tradition, the Ho'oponopono process. It means to make things right. Families get together, and what they do is that they get together and they iron out what's going on, and there's rituals and things. So she took some of that, and she was a Christian, and so there's a combination of the two things. And I had the opportunity, as the honor, to be around her from the time that I met her, and she lived in the same property in La Jolla with us for about 3 or 4 months, and had the opportunity to be with her. And she brings the prayer is about bringing in the inner family. It's the inner mother, the inner father, the inner child, the Amakua, the Ohane, and the Unihipili. And it's also about cutting cords. And there's a section about releasing people that have passed on. And of course, yesterday we were doing our bi-monthly Ho'oponopono process, and our beautiful, I think it was Dr. Lara that interrupted us as I was getting started to let us know that Bob had passed on. It was in the morning, it was early. So we learned about it very quickly, and we were able to include him. And so he has already been released, just in case there were some ties. But I wanted to share this a little bit, just so. Now, there is an opening prayer, which is a conversation from the Great Spirit, the I Am. And it is, "I come forth from the void into light. I am the breath that nurtures life. I am that emptiness, that hollowness beyond all consciousness, the I, the it, the all. I draw my bow of rainbows across the waters, the continent of minds with matters. I am the incoming and outgoing of breath, the invisible, untouchable breeze, the undefinable atom of creation." So now I am the I. So now we just will jump over to the area of the prayer where we get to cut aka chords for Bob. We get to just support him in even more faster, more quicker, moving into the divine light, which he was, he is, and such a precious human being. If you Google him, there's like, I mean, he is being posted everywhere. The press is speaking about him. You know, there's millions of people that follow him all around the world. So the Mahiki here is, and we can say our name out loud here very quickly. Father, Mother, Son as one, I, and say your full names out loud. Doris del Carmen Corda Michelle. Our families, relatives, and ancestors wish to do a ho'oponopono of the premises, persons, objects, transactions, atom, molecules, families, relatives, and ancestors, particularly of our beautiful Bob Proctor. If there are any earthbound spirit, or if he may be, and or negative vibrations within, on, or around him or others, if they are earthbound, we humbly ask that they be cleansed, purified, and released to the path of pure light. No longer will they be earthbound. We release them to the path of light as they release us. We include premises, persons, objects, rituals, transactions, atoms, molecules, families, relatives, and ancestors. We are all set free, especially Bob Proctor, and it is done. And then we'll just do a very quick release and cleansing. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Son as one, I, and say your names out loud. Doris del Carmen Corda Michelle. Our families, relatives, and ancestors mentally detach ourselves from all involved in this case, particularly, of course, around Bob Proctor. We cut all our cords, we're set free, and it is done. And then the cleansing, we mentally bathe ourselves from the top of the head to our toes with the following colors: indigo or purplish bluish light 7 times, emerald green 7 times, ice blue 7 times, and white 7 times. And we finish it off with a very beautiful Christian prayer that Morna got from the Bible in her own version, the peace of I, meaning the I am, the Great Spirit. Peace be with you. And this is for Bob. Peace be with you, all my peace, the peace that is I, the peace that is I am, the peace for always, now and forever, and evermore. My peace, our peace, we give to you, Bob. Our peace, I leave with you. Not the world's peace, but only my peace, the peace of I.
Wow, that's very, thank you so much. That is wonderful, a wonderful tribute to him and a wonderful prayer for him too. It's just such a privilege to be part of it. And, you know, Adora, talking to her and listening to this prayer, it brings a lot of emotion for me. And I'd like to just in 1 minute, tell anybody who's watching that if Bob Proctor were inside of me right now, here's what Bob would say. You have more potential than you could use in 1,000 lifetimes. You're a diamond in the making. All you need to do is cut and polish. And if you have a goal, write it down. And when you write that goal down, I want you to say to yourself that you have achieved it in the first person already. And then I want you to say it over and over and over again, because the secret to all learning is repetition, repetition, repetition. Repetition leads to internalization. Internalization leads to realization. So what you repeat and internalize will surely materialize. And Bob had that way of transmitting that ability to people in the best way I know how. And if I were Bob, Bob would say, that's it, and tell them to repeat it over and over again as if it's already been achieved, and it will happen. It will happen to you. And Bob even told that to me in our time together, Mo. So if anyone wants to watch Bob's last live interaction, they will hear and watch Bob say that repetition and writing it down would be the two greatest secrets you can do to help you achieve what's in front of you. But, you know, God bless him. And I am so privileged to have been a colleague and a student and a friend of Bob for the last 50 something years. And he lives within we, just as his work will outlive all of us. And Mo, thank you, and Adora for including me in this program as well. I'm humbled. I remember what Bob said. Bob said, I'll make you glad you talked with me. What I'll do is I'll find out more about you before I talk to you. And Bob knew more about me than I knew about me when he talked, because he likes to find out who he's with. And therefore, what he says is going to be relevant to them, not to him. So he was the one that you would say to him, I like me best when I'm with you, Bob, because with you, it's all about me instead of all about him. So it was all about what he could do for us rather than what we could do for him. And that will live on for the rest of my life.
I want to thank you, Denis. And with that, we will graciously thank you for your time and for leading the way and for really being the spearhead for this hour that we've been able to spend together. This is a news program, and we're technically covering the news of this gentleman's passing, but we were lucky enough to be able to have so many of his colleagues join us and speak and share their thoughts. And I will encourage folks to go back and watch the replay of the conversation that Denis is alluding to. That was a powerful conversation. I've heard it a couple times, and every time, people have told me, you go back, you listen to it, you come up with a new insight, because the two of you have so much of condensed wisdom, where one sentence from Denis Waitley is like a book, one sentence from Bob Proctor is like another book. So listen to that conversation. It's as if you read 600-700 books. And with that, Denis, I want to thank you. We will graciously bid you adieu, and we'll keep Doria here and Adora here for a few more minutes as we wrap up. Thank you, Denis. And Doria, I know that you have a friend from Australia who is also a leader in her own right, who wants to share how Bob Proctor impacted her in closing before we officially close out today's program. So Doria, would you like to please just give a brief introduction before we bring the final speaker on? Thank you.
This is a future dame. As soon as we're back to doing investitures along with the two of you, we must knight. And this is my beautiful business partner. Her name is Real Bergen Doyle, and she is the co-founder of 90 Degrees. And that is the organization that takes in programs for us, for the Accelerated Business Schools, the Money New program. But she has an amazing background. She's a humanitarian, this loving human being, and she is as committed to humanity and for people to just live out the best that they can be. And she was a student and an admirer, and is very, very moved by the fact that our beautiful Bob is no longer here. And I thought it would be very beautiful to bring someone from the Asia Pacific region, from Australia, and and that whole area, to just kind of complete this for us. So good morning to you, Real. What say you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Mo. Thanks, Adora, and thanks, Doria. So my heart was, when I first met Bob, I couldn't actually. I sat down to have a one-on-one with him, and there's some footage of me, and I could not speak. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't speak. And as a demonstration, what everyone was talking about who he was for Joe and everybody else, in the teeny weeny example of that. In that moment when I was sitting with him and we were talking and I was about to interview him and I was lost for words, he just reached over, tapped my leg, said something very quiet to reassure me, and just was the most generous, beautiful moment. And from that moment, I was fine. But for me, those big examples of him being there for everybody, that was a little tiny version of the exact same thing. The essence of the man was love, generosity, commitment, and a stand the stand that you can create the life you want. You can create a life that makes a difference, and it can be at the highest possible level. And for me, I spent 1 week with him in Toronto, and it set the trajectory for our life. It set the trajectory for our work together, Doria, because it was there that I came up with the 100 cities. We're going to have our work back live and in full in 100 cities. And we've been playing that 100 city game since then. And we're going to continue to do that to make our work available, transformational work on the planet that's very in tune with what Bob talks about and shares some principles, in fact. So it's just been incredible. And then from there, it's also personally set the trajectory of our family's life, and things that I thought were not possible literally are possible and will be possible for the future generations of my family because of those 7 days in Toronto. But that I feel like I'm a teeny weeny microcosm of the millions and millions and millions of people who he's had the same impact on, whether they listened to audio or they saw him in person or they actually got to meet him and spend time with him. And then I have friends that have been mentored very closely by him, who I know send out my deepest condolences to everyone who knew and loved him so personally and intimately. And I just was so touched yesterday, remembering that moment when he touched me on the knee. It just was such a demonstration of who he was for everybody on the planet. Every audio he ever did came from that same place. So thank you so much for letting me share that. It's really made a huge difference in our family and the work we do around the world. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing
Bob.
that, and for sharing just one of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of people that would love to share the impact that Bob Proctor made on them. And with that, we are going to wrap up our program. I want to thank you again, Doria, for sharing that beautiful prayer and your personal experience with Bob. Adora, if you have any final closing thoughts you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up.
Yes, I'm so grateful to you all for being here and everyone who came on before. And Mo, to you and the stand that you make as a news organization for the elevation of humanity. It's always a privilege to work with you and to see how you stand for all people through the people that you bring on and what you cover in your show. So thank you all so much. And Dame Doria, that prayer was beautiful. And yes, everything, the frequency and what people are saying in the comments about getting to connect around this topic and to hear, and it's brought a level of closure and peace, and add that prayer to it, it's a whole other level. So thank you so much, Mo.
Thank you so much, Adora, for the lovely words. And I will close out by sharing a quote that I know Bob Proctor would appreciate. And that's that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Rest in peace, Bob Proctor. Until next time.
Thank you.